Yes, we're going to discuss some different knowledge from the Bhagavad-gita on helping us to understand the mind. What is the mind, and how it functions, why it functions, and some suggestions on how we can try to control the mind. So this picture, I think, is I would say quite, like they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So when we discuss about the mind, usually terminology that you hear around the mind is things like, I think I'm losing my mind, or I'm going out of my mind, or I can't control my mind, or my mind is out of control. Yes? Anyone has heard these types of phrases spoken? Yeah. So often what you hear is people complaining about the mind. Yes?
Yeah.
Challenge is that when I ask the question, what is the mind? Most of us didn't even know what the mind is. But we obviously have some understanding of the mind, but generally most people are having problems with whatever the mind is. So we're going to discuss, as I mentioned, what is the mind. But first we need to realize that, or accept that we don't really understand what is the mind. And we also all seem to have some problems with it. The mind, let's see, how to describe the mind. Well, you can locate the mind like this. The mind is that little voice right now that's thinking, why does Vishal have that funny mustache on his face? And what is Johnny Tai talking about? This mind stuff, I don't know. And I'm so hungry, I'm so full, I'm stuffed, I've eaten too much. And oh God, how long will this go on? And why are we talking about the mind? That's the mind, yes? The mind is that little voice that sometimes it's just one, but actually I don't think I'm alone in saying that many of us experience more than one voice sometimes simultaneously within our head saying different things. Oh, has anyone experienced, oh yeah, I'd really like to do that, and then the other voice goes, no, you shouldn't do that. You know what will happen. And then another voice goes, no, it's okay. It doesn't matter. No one will know. And then the other voice says, oh, but I'll know. And they'll find out. And then it's a whole argument within our head. And then we're like, oh no, should I buy that pair of shoes? Oh yes, I just want a new pair of shoes. But no, I better not get those shoes. And then, but I have to have them. Oh no. And then it's like a whole conversation that's going on in the head. And we wonder what is going on. And somehow we often identify with all of these different voices, yet usually there is a distinction between the voices and me as a person who's hearing these voices and observing an argument about what I should do. So that's why it's very nice the way that Ami explained it. It's kind of something that tells the body how to react to something. So like that, usually there's some impetus for action or activity. And because we're coming up to time for studies or exams, then everyone's having to deal with the mind. So the mind is, either you're thinking, yeah, I mean, most students are probably not thinking, yeah, I got this, no problem. Most students are thinking, oh no, exams, what am I going to do? I have to stay up all night and I have to drink lots of caffeine. Yeah. yeah, maybe do some other things that'll keep me awake that I won't mention, but whatever I have to do just to stay up and study, and cram it all, pack it all into my head so that when it comes to exam day, I fall asleep because I'm so tired from studying and staying up all night. So the mind starts to give all these things. Oh no, if you fail your exam, what's going to happen? Oh no, what happens if I don't pass this year and I have to repeat another year? Oh no, what will my friends say? What will my mommy say? What will everybody say? And the mind is going on and on. There was a song I listened to when I was younger by a person named Joe Satriani, and in the song he said, sometimes I wish I could unscrew my head and put it on a shelf. I just want to take it off and stick it somewhere else. Because we identify that the mind is situated where? Like if I asked you to point to your mind, where would you point? Probably. Yeah, you probably go like this. It's right in there. The thing is, this is like this guy in the picture, right? So he's like, oh, my mind, my mind. So we all have it. We all experience it. Everyone, yes? Is there anyone who's never experienced any of those things that I've just said? Anyone? I think we've all had those experiences, right? So all of us have a mind. We can all agree that we all have a mind, and to some extent we're all being victimized by the mind, right? We're all being subjected to voices that most of the time I'd really rather not hear. And they're telling me this and arguing about this and so many things. So it's very, very disturbing. So this is something we have to understand. Everyone is experiencing this. So the Bhagavad Gita, especially in chapter 6, hold on a minute. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita in chapter 6 is discusses a lot about the mind and mind control, specifically around the topic of Astanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a wonderful analogy that's given. And the analogy that's given is of a chariot. Now, of course, we don't use chariots very often, but hopefully everyone is familiar. But we have a picture here of a kind of a chariot. So this is the chariot. And the chariot is compared to the body. Okay? So everyone here has a body? Anyone who doesn't have a body here? Okay, so we all have a body. Remember, we talked about this previously in Bhagavad Gita. It describes the body. It compares the body to what's called a yantra. A yantra means a machine. So yantra rudani mayaya, that's what Bhagavad Gita says, that the soul is seated as if on a machine made of the material energy. So the chariot is compared to the body. And a chariot or the body moves through the world via the medium of horses. Yes? So the horses pull the chariot. That's how it moves. So the horses are compared to the senses. Okay? Fernanda just went, okay, so yes. So the horses are compared to the senses. Now remember, this is an analogy to help us to understand something. So just like the body is the machine, but the body is able to move through the world it's facilitated because of the senses, right? So if right now I ask you all to stand up in the middle of the room, away from anything so you don't knock anything over, and then I tell you, now close your eyes and now cover your ears and try to walk to the door. How fast are you going to be able to move? Not very fast at all. because your senses are debilitated. Now, if I tie your legs together and your arms together and put something over your ears, and I maybe even cover your nose so you can't smell, because even with the sense of smell, it may give you a sense of direction of where to go. Like, let's say if the kitchen is in the other room and someone's cooking, at least you know, oh, the kitchen is that way, so you can kind of start to move in that direction. So the senses enable us and facilitate us moving through the material world. If our senses are limited in any way, means if we're blind or if we can't hear, then we become a little bit debilitated in our ability to move and function in the world. Would everyone agree with that? You know, nothing against anyone who has those features that are disabled, but the point is that's the case. Of course, many people have overcome those things and become quite accomplished in many areas. The point I'm making is that without the senses fully functioning, we're limited in our mobility. And in the same way, the body, which is the machine or the chariot, then it's pulled by the horses, which are the senses. And the five senses are the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth or the tongue, and the sense of touch, the skin. Yes. So like that. So these senses, these five senses, they give us mobility. Now the senses, we're always looking for nice things, you know, either handsome men or pretty bags or pretty clothes or nice pictures or scenic views. We're always looking for nice, and we want to smell nice things like mom's home cooking, or like, you know, a beautiful aroma of a flower. You know, right now all the cherry blossoms are coming out on the trees, and if you walk through the park, it's like, oh, it smells so good. And, you know, we always like to taste something nice. We like to hear nice things said about us, right? We like it when people glorify us. Oh, Marcella, you are so beautiful. Oh, Vishal, you're the most intelligent person I've ever met. And, you know, Vrishni, you have such a beautiful voice. And you're like, oh, yes, thank you. More, right? So we love it when we hear nice things, and we love to touch soft things or things that, you know, make us, you know, I don't know, whatever, remind us of home or safety or security. We like to feel the touch of things that are nice. So the senses are genuinely seeking after nice things because it brings pleasure. And usually the senses try to avoid bad things, like you're walking through the park and, you know, a doggy does its business and you're like, oh, you know, that's nasty, you know, or you see something that's not so nice, like, yeah, anyway, we don't want to talk about bad things. So, but we know we try to avoid bad things. So this is the way the senses move. And the senses are naturally drawn and attracted to certain objects and naturally repelled or repulsed from other objects. Yes, would everyone agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, some people are like, oh, no,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, okay, thanks, Vrishni, I'm great. So now we have some more to the analogy. You see these, anyone here has ever ridden a horse? Any horse riders, any jockeys in the crowd? No? Okay. Well, I used to, when I was growing up, and my cousin, she had a horse. We used to ride horses, and later in life, I also used to have the opportunity to go for horse rides. It's quite exciting, but you have to have something on the horse, which is called a bridle, and then what's connected to the horse. Anyone knows what these things here are called?
At the reins?
Reins, yes, reins, not like rain, but reins, R-E-I-G-N-S, reins, like rein it in, boy, means like pull it back, you know, pull back. So the reins on the horses are meant to control the horses. Yes, does that make sense? So if you want to go to the right, you pull this way and the horse goes to the right. And if you want to go to the left, you pull like that, and the horse goes to the left. And if you want the horse to stop, you pull back both reins, and the horse pulls back and comes to a stop. That's basically how you control a horse. Now, the reins are controlling the horse, and they're in the hands of the driver. So on a chariot, there's someone who's driving the chariot, and he has the reins, and he's in control of where we're going to go. Yes? Everyone's still with me in the analogy here? So the reins in this analogy are compared to the mind. The mind. So just like Ami said, that the mind is basically telling the senses where to go or where not to go. So the senses think, oh, if I touch this, if I smell this, if I taste this, if I hear this, then I'll be happy. And it's basically getting that knowledge or getting that information through the reins, through the mind. But where is the mind getting its information from? Because the mind or the reins, they're just an instrument to control the horses, to control the senses. But the reins are in the hands of the driver. So who is the driver? Well, the driver in this analogy is actually the intelligence. Okay? So it means your intelligence. Now, what does that mean, your intelligence? Can anyone show me their intelligence, please? So, no, you can't really show me your intelligence. It was a little easier earlier when I said about the mind, because I directed you to those little voices that we all hear inside speaking to ourselves sometimes. So we can identify with the mind, but the intelligence is even more subtle or difficult to see tangibly with the eyes. Just like data in a computer, like if I take this flash drive, yes? So this flash drive in and of itself isn't very intelligent, right? But if the flash drive is empty, then there's no data on it. But if I put a bunch of data on the flash drive, then theoretically I can put it into any computer and upload pictures or music or different data, information about people, whatever it is. So in the same way, our intelligence is like a flash drive or a data bank that is storing knowledge and information that we put into it. Does that make sense? All of you are going to school in order to learn things, yes? I hope. And so, sorry, I say school, but I mean university. It's not like school, it's university. It's much bigger, much more important. So you're all going to university to study and learn, so that when you graduate, hopefully some percentage of what you learned will be retained in the storage banks, in the data banks of your intelligence, correct? And then with that data which is stored in the intelligence, it means that when you go to interact with something that, let's say you've studied in the future. Vrishni, what are you studying again? Oh, yes, pharmaceuticals. She's our resident drug dealer. So when Vrishni in the future goes and she goes into the pharmacy and they dump a bunch of pills on the counter in front of her, her intelligence should go, pink pills good, red pills dangerous, yellow pills like this, orange pills like this, Pfizer pills this, all that data should come to the forefront, and then her mind will dictate, because her eyes will take in the knowledge and the information, or it takes in pictures, and then the intelligence places that information or that intelligence on top of the information that's going in. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yeah.
Actually, if you don't have any intelligence, like if me and Vrishni are standing side by side and someone puts a bunch of pills on the table, I'll look at the pills like, wow, that's cool, man. That's a lot of pills. Wow. But Vrishni will be like, no, Jai, this is a hafalafalafala pill, and this is a bagalagalagala pill, and this is a shmagaligaligala pill, and this one cures cancer, and this one cures dementia, and this one cures COVID, so we'll never ever get it again. These are all the pills, Jai, can't you see it? And I'll be like, no. Why? Because I don't have the intelligence to see it. Just like a mechanic, as we've described this analogy before, looks at the engine of a car differently than you look at the engine. You may look at the engine of a car if you're not a mechanic. When you lift up the hood and you look underneath, you're like this, right? So you just go mad, like, what's going on? But when the mechanic shows up, he sees everything, all the parts make sense to him, and he can hear things differently, right? Just by the way you try to start the car, if it's not starting, he doesn't even need to look under the engine. Just by hearing, he can know, oh, it's a problem with your battery, it's a problem with the starter, it's a problem with the carburetor, it's a problem with the, spark plugs, whatever it is. Or he might even smell. Oh, when he shows up, he's like, smells like there's oil leaking on something, or it smells like some electrical issue, it smells like something is burned. Just by smelling, his intelligence gives information, or gives knowledge by which he can make decisions. So actually, the intelligence has to be strong in order to dictate to the mind, to control the senses, how to respond or react or interact with the world around us. Is everyone okay with my explanation so far? Is there any questions? Yeah, okay, Fernando's very exciting. Marcella is thinking, I wish my intelligence would have been stronger earlier not to eat 14 more pieces of pizza and have another portion of chips. But this is a good point, because sometimes it seems like the senses or the horses have a mind of their own, right? Because we're eating, and sometimes the intelligence says, I think you should stop now. It's good. This is a good place to stop. But the tongue goes, no, I want more. Give me more. And then you think, and then your hand goes, yes. And the hand starts listening to the mouth instead of listening to the intelligence. Why? Because the intelligence is weak, and the mind is weak, and the senses are very, very, very strong. Because the horses, the senses have been trained over time to really seek out those things that are good experiences, that bring me pleasure. So therefore, they're kind of like a panting dog, just waiting for like some enjoyment to come. And as soon as they see something that makes them, that's why the whole marketing industry is driven by attracting and pulling the senses, and hoping that the senses come and leave the mind and intelligence behind. But as long as the senses bring the credit card, very good. We're very happy, yes? So just come with the senses to enjoy, buy this product. I think I've told before, when I used to work in the city in London, and I would come up the escalators at Liverpool Street Station. I would be coming up the steps, and every day, about a third of the way up the steps, I'd be like, oh yeah, I can't wait to have a cappuccino when I get to the top of the steps at that nice little, Costa coffee stall or whatever it was then. And every day it was the same. And I was thinking, and I said to the guy one day, every day, and there's always a big queue at the top of the escalators, to get a coffee. And I said, why is it every day I just want to have one of your coffees? And he said, well, apart from the fact that you've become addicted to the caffeine, he said, the other thing is that I'll show you. And he took me over to the side where behind the stall, they had this big percolator. that was attached to a hose that went down into the underground along beside the escalators and pumped out the aroma of coffee into the underground. So as soon as you get off the tube train and start to come up the escalators, the first thing that hits you is the smell of coffee. And everybody knows the smell of coffee is so yummy, yummy, yummy. And therefore, you're coming up the steps and you're already looking in your pocket for like, a $5 or something so you can get your cappuccino. So the marketing industry knows how much the senses have been trained to seek enjoyment, and that most people's intelligence and minds are not actually in control. In fact, their mind and their intelligence is usually kind of out to lunch or having a nap break or something, And most people, like this analogy of the chariot, most people are really just being dragged around by their senses without much use of the mind or intelligence, which is why at the end of the month, when people get their credit card bills, they're like, oh no, why did I do that? How did that happen? I didn't realize, because they just spend to feel good, 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 good. And later they suffer like that. So in this way, we can understand that the mind can either be our enemy or it can be our friend. In fact, the Bhagavad-gita explains that the mind is either our best friend or our worst enemy. So like this, you can see, don't mind this watermark here, that's an accident. You can see this young lady, she's looking for peace. She's looking for harmony. She's on the spiritual path. And this little angel is saying, let's call her Rebecca. Rebecca, that if you want peace, you have to give up certain things and just focus your mind. And this girl over here, the little devil, is saying, Rebecca, don't listen to that little angel. If you want to have fun, Rebecca, if you want to enjoy, you have to hang out with me. And this is what's going on, as we discussed earlier, within our minds. So if the mind is uncontrolled, then this is basically what happens. We get easily distracted. You're supposed to be studying, but instead you find yourself watching, whatever it is, some box set of Friends, or some, you started on season 1, your exams are on in 2 days, and in 2 days you're all the way up to season 12, and you're like, oh, I just got to see what happens, So the mind just distracts you completely and draws you in another place. Or you think, oh, I'm studying, brant, 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 and then the phone, oh no, that little device there, and I'm WhatsApp this, WhatsApp that, email this, email that, check Facebook. Oh, while I'm here, I may as well update my profile, take a little selfie, send it to my friends. I'm studying. No, you're not. You're playing with your phone, because your mind is out of control and it has become your worst enemy. But if the mind is controlled, then the mind becomes our best friend, and it actually helps us to accomplish and achieve things that we might not have otherwise been able to achieve or accomplish. But all of this means that the intelligence has to be strong. And if we go back to our picture here, then you may be wondering, well, who is this? Who is this? Well, who do you think that is? What do you think that is? Krishna, you can't answer. Come on, everybody. If the chariot is the body, the horses are the senses, the reins are the mind. This guy here holding the reins is the intelligence. Well, who's the passenger in the body?
Is it the soul?
Oh, Vishal, yes. Haribol, very good, very good. Yes. It's you. It's you, Vishal. It is you. Yes, you are sitting in that body, in that chariot, and you are just simply the soul. The soul is not actually, according to the Bhagavad-gita, the soul is not really interacting in the material energy. The soul is aloof from all. The soul is simply desiring. Oh, today I want to enjoy. And the intelligence says, how can we enjoy today? Let's crack the mind and tell the senses where to go. But often the soul is just being dragged around by the uncontrolled mind and senses and suffering. So here we are sitting in the body. This is that same soul, that's the passenger there. And this is the uncontrolled mind. And this is the uncontrolled mind and the controlled mind. So like this. So do these analogies make a little bit of sense? Anyone still following me, or anyone fell off the chariot somewhere along the way? Yeah, thumbs up if you're okay, we keep going. Yes, okay. So actually my slides are a little bit out of order, but there are many ways that are described that we can learn how to control the mind. Again, in chapter 6 of the Bhagavad-gita, it is explained that an important way to control the mind is having good life balance. Yes? So it means life has to be in balance. How many of us really feel that our life is in balance? No. So that means, and specifically, Bhagavad-gita mentions these 4 things, or 4 items, or 4 activities. Eating. Yes, everyone here has to eat. As we know, Marcella has no capacity to control her eating. She is a ravenous wild animal who eats uncontrollably. Just kidding, Marcella, just trying to make you laugh. Keep you awake, because we know how it is. When you eat too much, you fall asleep. So eating is very difficult to control because the tongue is the most difficult of all the senses to control, right? Because the tongue has 2 functions. The tongue has the function of tasting, and it also has the function of speaking. No other sense, none of the other senses have 2 functions. So therefore, that's why the tongue is very difficult to control, right? So we always want to talk. In fact, my wife tells me all the time, you talk too much. Talk. And, you know, so we always want to talk. Everybody has to have what? Unlimited minutes on their phone, just so they can talk. So people like to talk, and people say things without being connected to the mind or intelligence, right? Anyone's had that experience where you said something, and as soon as it falls out of your mouth, then you wish, oh, I wish I could put it back in my mouth again. So we do that because the tongue's out of control. And eating. Some years ago, we had the MP of Westminster. He came to visit us at the temple, and we did had a whole conversation and discussion with him and presentation. And afterwards, I asked him when he was leaving, I said, Mr. MP, how can we assist you in serving the community of Westminster better? And I was, you know, I didn't know what he was going to say. And he said, you should open more of your restaurants. And I was like, wow, you're encouraging us to what, make more money? And he said, no. He said, one of the biggest problems that we as MPs face is the NHS health bills. And in the NHS, most of illnesses are caused by bad diet. And he said, especially issues of obesity and so many other things, heart disease. And he said, and everybody knows that a vegetarian diet is the healthiest diet. And he said, so you should open more of your restaurants, because if you do, more people will be more healthy, and the NHS bills will go down, and people having health issues will also go down. So anyway, that's kind of a side point. But the main point is that eating is a very difficult thing to get into balance. But, right, Marcella? Speak, speak from experience. So, and what happens is eating and sleeping, they kind of go a little bit together, right? Because actually, the more you eat, the more you sleep, right? The more you eat, and the less you eat, or the more balanced that you eat, the less you actually need to sleep. Because a lot of what happens when you're sleeping is digesting what is sitting in the stomach. And if you eat at the right times of the day, then that gives the body more of an opportunity to digest and deal with things before you go to sleep. But sometimes, and especially during exam times, my experience with students is this goes out the window. And in the Bhagavatam, it's described by Lord Kapila Dev to Devahuti that sleep is a function of the intelligence. So if we malnourish ourselves in this area, in the sleep area, if we don't get enough sleep, the intelligence will not work well enough. It will actually be debilitated. So really the best thing is not to pull all-nighters trying to study. Best is to get a good night's sleep, go to bed early, and get up early. Get up early and study in the early hours of the morning, when your mind and intelligence is very fresh, and your intelligence will be like a sponge, and it will just soak up the information, and it will be easier to remember it later. But what happens is most of the time students are busy staying up late at night after they've already had a full day of activities. Their intelligence is like, gah, 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 being bombarded all day, and then they're trying to put more in. Anyway, it really, according to, let's say, Vedic culture or any types of spiritual paths, it doesn't make much sense. Best time for deep and profound study, if you want to maximize your time, is the earlier hours of the morning. But we also have to have recreation. And what does recreation mean? Well, it actually means exactly what it says, recreation. We have to recreate ourselves. And how do you do that? By just having a break. So again, by doing these like 12-hour stints, there's an analogy given by someone called Stephen Covey. He's a famous managerial guru. You may have heard of him. But he coins this phrase that you have to sharpen the saw. And he gives the example that if two lumberjacks, two guys who cut down trees for a living, if they have this saw where one is on one side and the other's on the other, and they saw down trees like that. Now, we're not promoting sawing down trees. Please don't get me wrong. I'm very much an ecologically friendly person, but we're just using an analogy. So if they're sawing down this tree and they keep doing it, and they're trying to beat their competitors by sawing it down, they may be very fast, but if they don't stop to sharpen the saw, after about 5 or 10 trees, that blade is going to become dull, and it's not going to be cutting as fast. Whereas someone who stops for 15 or 20 minutes to sharpen the saw, their efficiency will be much, much more. Does that make a little bit of sense? So,
I think in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly it, correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's the 7th habit, to sharpen the saw, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, so this principle of recreation or recreation means we have to take time out to allow ourselves to recreate, to digest what's gone in and shake off what doesn't need to be there, and then come back to it. And then, of course, the last one is work, which basically once you graduate from school and you get a job, this will be the main priority of your entire life. and everything else will revolve around work, 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 work. I work, I wake up for work, I go to work, I make money at work, I work, 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 work. I wish I was back at school, back at university, where I ate too much pizza, but now I work, work, work to pay off my loans, and I work, 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 work. So, and most people, they complain that their whole lives are consumed by their work and they never have any time. I don't have any time because I'm always working. So most people do not have a good life balance. So if you want the mind to be more steady and focused and controlled, then there has to be balance of all of these areas. And the Bhagavad-gita explains that you cannot find any peace in life if you don't have some balance with all of these things. They all have to be working. It's not easy, but at least if with knowledge and understanding, then we can try to implement those things. And the mind, the intelligence becomes stronger, and the mind becomes more easily controlled, and the senses naturally fall into their appropriate place. Yes? Makes sense? Everyone's okay? All right. So we've got a few more slides. So one of the ways that we can maximize control of the mind is through the process of meditation. So meditation is, again, everyone knows that through meditation, so many things become easier and more simple. There's a person, forget his name, it might be Charles de Silva, since Ami seems to know all these people. He was also another kind of a success guru type of person. But he did the trials where he had two competing basketball teams. Everyone knows basketball, shoot hoops, Sam, shooting hoops, man. So playing basketball, he had one team go out and practice every day for a week. And he had the other team sit in a room, not even touch a basketball. But what they did was they meditated on, and he had them visualize and focus on first winning the game. So their whole meditation was on winning the game. Then he had them meditate on holding the ball and shooting at the hoop, and the ball always going in the hoop. And they just meditated on this. And he had them focus their minds on meditating on winning and the ball always going in the hoop whenever they would shoot it. And they just did that for a week while the other team was out there practicing shooting hoops and doing so many things. And then they had their game. It came to match day. And on match day, which team do you think won? The team that practiced all week or the team that meditated all week?
The team that meditates.
Yeah, well, that's the obvious answer, right? Because we got on the screen. Oh God, Krishna. Actually, yes, that's the case. The team that meditated all week, they outperformed the team that practiced. So it's not actually, life is mostly a matter of the mind. If we're in the wrong mentality, if we have the wrong mindset, if our mind is disturbed or upset, our performance in whatever area of life will be debilitated beyond the shadow of a doubt. But if we take time to focus the mind, to concentrate the mind, to still the mind, to calm and appease the mind, to bring the mind under control, then we become very deeply empowered to achieve very high levels of success. And the process of meditation can be done on a level that is simply for, material gain, in the sense of like winning a basketball game. But actually, the deeper understanding of meditation is that we go deep into our meditation to the point where we make contact with our true identity as a soul, and we separate ourselves away from this mind, away from this intelligence, away from the senses, and we cultivate a consciousness of our true identity as a spiritual being. And in that space of cultivating a consciousness of ourselves as true spiritual beings and our eternal connectedness with a higher power, we find a space of serenity, a space of calm, a space of peace, a space of satisfaction. And therefore, that actually nourishes the intelligence to be strong with the mind and control the senses, so that the senses don't yearn for things that are outside, but actually the senses begin to understand and begin to be trained that real satisfaction, real joy, real bliss, real love can only be found inside. So let me not become distracted by the external satisfactions. Let me remain focused so that I can experience the genuine satisfaction that comes from within. So like that. And in the process of our meditation, Bhagavad-gita explains, let us become like a lamp in a windless place. Like, I don't know if you've ever meditated on watching the flame, the flickering flame of a candle. It jumps like this. But every now and again, if you've ever meditated on the flame of a candle, then sometimes it just goes and it just stays in like one place. And then if you're meditating on the candle and that happens, then you immediately feel like, yes, connected. So we also have to become like this. I mentioned, I think, maybe last week or the week before, about becoming the eye of the storm. So like that, we become focused and centered, so we're not flustered, we're not disturbed, we're prepared. And if the questions come on the exam, then we can take our time and we can breathe deep, can maybe offer a prayer, and we can think in a very calm and reflective way, even to the point where we can picture the paper or the book that has the answer to this question, and we can visualize looking through it, and we can find the answer in our mind's eye, right? This is the terminology, in our mind's eye, because we've become so calm and the mind has become controlled that it has become our best friend, and it helps us to be successful in these things. But we have to cultivate this consciousness. So the Bhagavad-gita explains that from wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. And the self means the soul, us. We're the owner and controller of the mind. Let us not be controlled by the mind. Let us learn to control the mind. So in this way, we can actually make a steady and gradual process. Now, this slide is a little bit out of place, but Arjuna explains, Arjuna says to Krishna, after Krishna is explaining to him that, you have to learn to control the mind, Arjuna says, oh, Krishna, this seems impractical and unendurable. He says, actually, it's more difficult to control the mind than to control the raging wind. But Krishna says to Arjuna that actually, through the process of practice and detachment, we can achieve success, and we can break these chains that bind us. We can break the chains that tie us into habits and activities that basically drain us of so much energy, and we can become free. So that practice means that we have to practice concentrating and focusing the mind, and we have to become detached from the objects of the senses and detached from this idea of being the body and attached to the idea of recognizing ourselves as a spirit soul, as a spiritual being. And Krishna explains at the end of the 6th chapter that the best way to do this is to meditate on him. And the best way to do that in this age is by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra that we chant, Vrishni sings so lovely at the end of every session. So just simply by chanting this mantra, because the mantra has spiritual sound vibration, it means that it's resonating at a frequency that is on the spiritual platform. And because we're spiritual beings, when we hear that sound vibration, it's like, what is the term? If you play a guitar in a room with other guitars, and you just hit like an A string, gang, gang, and you keep hitting it, eventually all the other guitars in the room will start to vibrate that A string. It's called, there's a name for it, and I can't remember it, but like sympathetic harmony or something like that. So in the same way, when that sound vibration of the holy name starts to vibrate, the soul feels it and recognizes it, and it immediately starts to also harmonize and feel comfortable and feel safe and secure and blissful. So like this, Krishna says at the end that the topmost yogi is the one who is always connected with me. And like I said, the best way to connect is by chanting this mantra. So the simplest way in this age of controlling the mind is by chanting this Maha Mantra. So that's my presentation. I think I finished almost spot on time. So anyone has any questions, comments, additions, subtractions? I hope no one was offended. Marcella, please forgive me. Don't be offended. I used you as an example in there. I hope you're not upset.
No, about the pizza, but that's exactly what happened today. I have no self-control when we order pizza. And I know, and then I feel guilty because I usually don't eat much. So when I eat that, it's just too much, yeah. No offense, no. But it was vegan pizza, right? So it's okay.
That's good.
What's the difference?
Pizza, make sure it's vegan.
Oh gosh.
Does anyone have any thoughts?
I think there's something in the chat.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, yes, I saw some stuff popping up. Amena, okay. I have been trying to meditate for the past 2 years. However, I have found it difficult to focus. Are there any meditation centers I could attend? Thank you so much. Well, yes. You don't need a meditation center. It's just a principle of continuing to practice. And also it depends on what kind of meditation we're trying to do. A lot of meditation centers try to teach us to empty the mind of all of our thoughts and all of our desires, which in principle is a good idea. But the challenge is that the mind will never be emptied of desires, because trying to empty the mind of desires is a desire. So even that's a desire. So there's no way, because that is the nature of the mind and the intelligence. It's the nature of the soul to desire. So the point is that better to give the mind a positive focus. And that's why I mentioned this chanting. So what I suggest, Amena, is it Amena or, yeah, Amena, is to maybe connect with Vrishni. She can help to arrange to send you some japa beads. So in the age that we're living in, which is the age of mass distraction, you know, we're all suffering from the weapons of mass distraction. You know, we're always being drawn to this and drawn to that. The internet pulls us, the phone pulls us, our friends, everything's pulling us in so many distracting ways. And with this chanting, if you have these beads, they're called japa beads, then you can chant on these beads. Here, I think I have some here. Well, not exactly japa beads, but they're the closest thing I have. They look like actually an old set of neck beads, but nevertheless, pretty close anyway. If I hadn't told you, you wouldn't know the difference, right? So you just hold these beads like this, and here, let me try something.
I got some with me.
Have some, okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that, there you go.
Mm.
Yes, it's difficult to see. Yeah, let me change it. It's difficult to see what you're doing when you have that background filter. So you can see
Yeah.
this a little bit. So you hold it between these two fingers, and that engages the sense of touch. So the point is not so much to negate things, to neglect, but to engage. That's the source of real success, to engage things. So like a naughty child, the mind is compared to a naughty child. So naughty children, you know, they say terrible twos. So at the age of 2, kids, they want to get into anything. They're always picking stuff off the table. They're putting themselves in the toilet. You know, they're doing everything they can to make a mess, sticking metal into the electric socket. So you can walk around saying, stop, stop, stop. Don't do that. Don't do that. And okay, maybe the kid will listen for a few minutes. But if you sit down with the child and you give him a toy and you start to play with him or her, then the child forgets all about throwing the cat in the toilet or sticking the fork in the electric socket. And the child just starts playing with the toy. So you've achieved what you want to achieve, not by saying no, 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 stop, 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 but by engaging the child in activity. So we engage the sense of touch by holding the beads. We then engage the sense of speech. So we have to control the tongue because the tongue is kind of the most difficult of the sense. So we control the sense of speech by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, while you're holding one bead, and then you move to the next bead and you chant on the next bead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And you're also simultaneously, because when you speak, naturally what happens is your ears should listen. So you start to listen. So now you're engaging 3 of the 5 senses in meditation. So you're not trying to tell the ears to stop listening. You say, oh, my dear ears, you are so good at listening. Please, please listen to this chanting of this mantra. And oh, tongue, you like to talk so much. You're very expert at talking. Why don't you talk this mantra? And oh, fingers, who are always walking around looking for something to get into, why don't you get into these japa beads and like just chant? And then you can light some incense if you like. Ah, nice. Oh, yes, we love. Ah, incense. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then the only thing you have left to occupy are your eyes. So many times people, when they meditate, they close their eyes, which is good. But sometimes when you close your eyes, then your mind wakes up. Bing! And as soon as you close your eyes, your mind says, oh, right, he's come to the movies. Let's show all the films of all the crazy things you did as a kid. Yay! let's show how about last year's holiday in the Bahamas? Let's play it. And your eyes are closed, and next thing you're watching all this stuff and you're like, ah. So sometimes it's better to keep the eyes open just a little bit, almost closed, but not completely. Or you can have a nice picture, like I showed that picture at the end of Krishna embracing his dear devotee. And you can have a picture where you look at the picture and then you focus on the picture and you meditate on that picture. And then you're engaging all 5 senses. And once all those horses are engaged, the mind doesn't have any choice but to come under control. So you're choosing to consciously engage the senses. That means the intelligence is strongly telling the senses to be engaged by pulling the mind And then the mind says, okay, sense of touch, sense of speech, sense of hearing, incense for the nose and the eyes. Okay, I'll just close my eyes almost all the way. Hare Krishna, Krishna. And then you just chant. And the next thing you know, you're meditating for hours. And some of us meditate like this for at least 2 hours a day. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a Maha Japa Yagya, which was like a day where we took the whole day and you could chant all day if you wanted. So I think somehow I chanted from 3 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, just straight chanting 12 hours. It was great. After that, I was like, woohoo, wow. Like I didn't even feel like I was a body anymore. It was great. I was so happy. And so it took 12 hours to figure that out. But anyway, it was worth it. So anyway, like that. So the thing is, once you start chanting, it becomes almost addictive, but it's a good addiction, kind of like vegan pizza. It's a good addiction, you know. It's like chanting Hare Krishna, because the tongue wants to engage in so much nonsense, you know, so like that. So I don't know if that answered your question, Amena, or if it just bored you to death. But anyway, I tried my best. So I suggest getting in touch with Vrishni and really try this chanting, because it is the recommended process for the age that we live in. Other types of meditation were recommended in different ages. Just like if you're in the medicine, if you're studying medicine, you know that, I don't know, like 200 years ago, they would have treated a certain disease by hitting you on the head with a hammer. So, I mean, we're not going to do that now, are we? Of course, you might want to some patients, but, but basically, there's different prescribed activities for different ages. So like that. Sorry, Vrishni, I'm talking too much. Just blah, blah, blah.
No, that was perfect. Is there anything else in the chat?
Someone said haha every time, and then someone said it has been extremely helpful. I think Amin said that to me.
Okay. I think there's like chanting Om somewhere in the chat.
Okay, yeah, Giant, he mentioned chanting Om. Yeah, chanting Om is fine. Actually, in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna explains that he is the syllables Om. So, and many great sages and sadhus, or if you ever see the Buddhist monks, you know, they're like, you know, they have like 20, 30 of them. They're all like, oh, like 30 of them chanting Om, and everyone's like, whoa. So Krishna explains that he is the syllable Om. But in the age of Kali that we're living in, again, like I mentioned earlier, chanting of Om was recommended in a different age. Now the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, which is non-different from Om, is recommended in this age. So, but either way, whatever, however you find inspiration to connect, the point is to connect. So when I first started meditation, I was also chanting Om like that. So anything else? Anyone else? No one ever asks any questions except for Ellie.
No, but it's just a comment. I actually loved this this connection that you made of the sense with meditation. I think I'm definitely going to approach it in a different way, because definitely keeping focus has been my challenge lately. You know, yeah, I do. You know, I have a full planning of my day. I wake up early. I started well, and then after 3 hours, yeah, I'm on Twitter. You know, just reading some random stuff. I said, no, but I was doing so well, and I cannot, even though at some point I do get back to what I was doing, I do not recover the same focus that I had at the beginning, especially at the beginning of the morning from 8 to 11, I would say.
That's really, really good and a nice point. Couple of things. If you don't, is it okay if I comment also on your?
Oh, yes, please.
So Vrishni, is it okay?
Yeah, of course.
So two important points that came up there. Well, 3, 4, 5. No, just so the first one is that yes, it's very easy to get distracted. Just like that quote that I gave in the talk on the slide, that from wherever the mind wanders, you pull it back. And don't be surprised that the mind wanders. We've trained it to do that. So it's like, you can't beat a dog that's disobedient because you didn't train it. You haven't trained the dog to be obedient, so it's going to be disobedient. But by pulling the mind back, that is starting to train the mind that there's no need to wander off, because wherever you wander, I'm going to bring you back. So best you just stay here and stay focused. And when you catch yourself doing that, because it happens to all of us, that you start and you're meditating and chanting, and then you think, because I get all the best ideas when I'm chanting, it's like, and then I think, oh, I better action that. I better do that now. But actually, don't worry. It will come back to you, like the famous song, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it's meant to be for you. And if not, don't worry about it. It's okay. So just let it go and just think that this is the most important thing right now. Nothing else matters. If I don't do this correctly now, nothing else is going to work properly throughout the rest of the day. This time is what needs to filter through everything else through the rest of the day. So I first have to get this right. Just like if you're doing a mathematical equation, you may want to get to the end to get the right sums, but if you don't do the first part of the equation properly, you will never get the sums or the results that you need to get at the end. A chemical equation, putting medicine together, whatever it is, in the beginning, the foundation is laid on which everything else is built. And if that foundation is not solid, everything else that's built on top of it will be shaky. So just with your intelligence, you have to keep convincing the mind. And okay, the mind will still wander, but just bring it back and start again. So that's kind of 2 points. One is that the mind will wander, but bring it back. Sorry, 1 point. Second point is the early hours of the day are much better for doing this. I think you said between 8 and 11. For me, by 8 o'clock, my day is already half gone, So, but anyway, whatever time it is, the early hours are much better. The best time for chanting is actually 1.5 to 2 hours before sunrise. That usually means between 4 and 6 in the morning, or between 5 and 7. Because we discussed the modes, so the day moves in different modes. And when the sun rises and starts to heat everything up and light comes, that's when passion starts. And at night, after the sun is set, that's ignorance. But when you wake up and refresh yourself in those early hours of the day, then the mind is at most peaceful. The ether and the atmosphere is most calm. That is the best time for focusing the mind on meditation. And let's say, if you're able to get up then that's a good time. But anyway, the early hours. But if you wait till 8 o'clock at night to try to do some meditating, man, forget it. I mean, you can try to calm down some, but you will never achieve the same level that you do in the early hours of the morning. So the morning is a good time. So those are kind of 2 main points out of what you said that you brought up that are it's just natural. The mind is going to wander, but try to bring it back and try to do it in the early hours of the morning if you can.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Amazing. Very inspirational. Anything else, or is my time up?